Welcome to the Most Serious Podcast. And yet another psychologist joins us on the Most Serious Podcast today. Shivangi, thank you so much for waking up on a Sunday and deciding to do this.
Thank you so much for having me.
Do you like it when people call you a psychologist, or is there a different identity that you primarily want to go by first?
No, I like it when people call me that. It has a certain intelligent connotation attached to it, right? So who wouldn't like being called something that's related to intelligence and like related to being smart? So I love it always.
Very interesting. I didn't plan on starting by this bit, but what you just said strikes a chord in my head, and I want to double down on that.
I realized as I was saying it, I was like, okay, you walked right into this one.
Why do people want that? Why does everyone want to sound intelligent and be associated with some sort of wisdom?
I mean, isn't it great? Why wouldn't you? If you had a chance being called as something that's usually viewed as somebody that's intelligent or somebody that's wise, somebody who has enough knowledge to impart it, wouldn't you want to be associated to that more? It's just a general inclination that we end up having, and it's also a normative society that we live in. So if you're attached to something, if you would be more inclined to listen to any advice mostly that's been given by a doctor, say for example,
Yeah.
right, as you would, as compared to somebody maybe who is not in a profession that is normatively related to something related to intelligence. So it's just that, it's very basic.
Do we
we
think do we assume that we are not intelligent enough to start off? Like there would be some lack inside our heads, no, that pushes us to feel like we want to be more wiser or more brainy.
That is more of a mentality that we've garnered as a society. No, that you always can be better. You always can be slightly more wiser. You can know a little bit more. You can take a little bit more. So I think that's just something that we've developed as a society over years. And it's also, you see a difference in how people who are assumed to be intelligent treated as compared to people who are not assumed to be at par with those people. So it is just something that we formed. It's a bias that we formed.
Intelligence also, I think, earlier, I can say this for myself, that whenever I heard this word, it only meant academic intelligence, according to me.
Hmm.
And as I've grown up, I've realized that there are different things to life, and there are different things to any particular word. If you look at it, there are certain filters that you can apply to it and then figure out, are you intelligent in that sense or not? So maybe someone is very academically intelligent, but how is their social intelligence or emotional intelligence? That could be an entirely different subject.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why I said no. It's a bias. There is no one definition of intelligence anyway. It's just a bias that we formed as a society. That somebody who is more academically achieved something, who's more academically accomplished, or who has a certain title to their name, is perceived as somebody who's more reliable, somebody who has more knowledge, somebody who knows more. And that's why, because of this bias that we have in our head, we only focus on that part of intelligence. There are so many other things that people can be intelligent in. Intelligence is subjective. There's creative intelligence, there is musical intelligence, there is 10,000 other types of intelligences that exist. But we tend to focus, because of a bias, on only one collective type of intelligence.
When you say bias, okay, I interpret a certain meaning inside my head which mostly tells me that it's some sort of prejudice or a preconceived notion that I've solidified inside my head. And many people have different biases, but I want to understand this from an expert. Like, how does a bias actually form? Like, how does it take birth? Does it take birth from an idea? Does it take birth from when someone says something and you immediately admit that that's the truth, and then you carry it on for the rest of your life? Like, what's the process of a thought becoming a bias inside a person's life?
I think if I put it very generally, in very simple terms, it's a collective thought process that gets formed over a period of time, either because that bias is being reinforced. say for example you have a thought, you see other people also acting on the same thought, and so it keeps getting reinforced. It's even better if you have more people who are reinforcing that thought, or better consequences related to that thought. So again, it works in a form of association and reinforcement. So then when there's a collective thinking that is already formed, it has a similar outcome almost every time that you perform it, there is a bias that gets formed in that direction.
Do you agree that I don't know if it's true for you or not, but bias always also has a negative connotation attached to it. I think there's value in bias. That's why it's a psychological function that people have, humanity has sustained for so long. But there would be value in it. Of course, you don't have to reinvent the wheel because you have certain biases. But mostly it ends up in us rejecting a new school of thought. While there's value in that, but I think there's also demerit in that, because then what is this whole experience of life if not to challenge everything that you know?
Hmm. No, I think you're right in that part. What you said was you're right. I think that biases do restrain us, and they restrict our thought patterns sometimes, but they're also important, like you said, for the functioning of a society. At certain levels, they're important. But apart from that, and also because they're formed so unconsciously sometimes, and we end up following them very unconsciously, and that's why they don't seem as restrictive, because that's what we know, that's normal for us, right? You don't usually question what is normal for you unless somebody else comes in with a new thought and you're forced to challenge your thought. And that also might not happen with everybody. If somebody is very comfortable in the pattern or the way of thinking that they've applied to their life for most of it, they would not end up questioning it a lot. And if it's working for you, you might not end up questioning, say, a certain way of life. If it's working for you, you might not end up questioning it until something better comes along and somebody forces you to challenge your thought. So you might not end up actually ever questioning if there is more to this than what you're thinking or what you've perceived so far.
I think psychology and physics are not that different after all. You remember Newton's law of inertia? It's very similar to this, no? Like a body will remain in the state of motion unless an external force is applied to
Yeah.
alter its state of motion. Do you like physics? Do you like any other academic also outside of psychology?
Okay. No. No. I had humanities in 11th and 12th. I left science and maths as soon as I could. I had no interest in it. To be fair, I wasn't very good at mathematics. I struggled a lot with numbers. They went right over my head. So even statistics, when I was studying psychology, so we have statistics as well, and all these standardized tests that are there, you have to score them in a certain manner. There's lots of numbers. I used to grab my hair. I was like, okay, I can't do this right now. Like, there is a reason why I did not pick up something that had mathematics and numbers in it. So no, science, mathematics, no, I don't like it. I'm not too good at it, actually. I think, and I haven't even tried enough to be good at it, to be fair. So no, not really.
How do you then differentiate? Then this is very interesting. How is it different from a bias? Like, do you think you have a bias that you're not good at science or math, or do you think it's the
Maybe.
other way around?
No, maybe I do, or maybe it's just a set perception that I've formed because I performed badly in that one test a couple of years,
Yeah.
and now I've just carried that perception. And because I saw that everyone around me could do it, I could not do it. So now it's set in my head that okay, I am not good at this particular subject. So let me just not go there. So I don't think I would go as far as calling it a bias, but I think it is a preconceived notion that I now have of myself in association to say certain subjects academically.
Comparison, I think, plays a big role in this. Like, we as human beings derive so much of our meaning from our environment and the people around us. Like, I've talked to so many people on this podcast also, and this is one thing that really blows my mind away. And these are people who've done so much in their lives, and if I ask them, do you still feel like an imposter, or do you still feel that you don't belong into the groups or the rooms that you are mostly in? And many of the times they're like, yeah, we do still feel that, and that blows away my mind. Like, when do you actually know that you've made it? If successful people are also feeling like they're imposters in their heads, then who actually has got their life sorted and knows that, okay, I'm, in a nice state in life and I've achieved what I wanted to.
I think it's very circular, this entire conversation about imposter syndrome. It's very circular. You start as because a lot of people do believe, and I've seen this with a lot of my clients as well. They're not able to appreciate where they're good because they feel like if they do, they're going to get ahead of themselves and they might stop putting in the effort that it requires to be better. What they miss out in this entire thought process is that if you do not appreciate what is already there, you might not be motivated enough to build on it, right? Some people feel that negative reinforcement or negative associations, they work way better. So, negatively motivating yourself, telling yourself that you're not good enough so that you can be good enough, that might work better, right? Some people do have this thought that that might work better rather than telling yourself that, oh, you're already good at this and you're doing a great job, so why don't you do better? There's two ways to look at it, right? But all in all, I think this circle never stops. I think I know personally a very few people who are actually content with where they are. They constantly want to do more, and again, I think part of that would also lie in the fact that there's so many people doing so many things right now, multiple things. Like one person is not stopping; they're constantly going on to do this also, do that also. People have multiple jobs. You are already working. You're 24, right? You're working, you're doing this podcast, and you're putting in the work everywhere. You're also, using your skills to talk. You're using your skills at work. So you're already doing so much. Now, another 24-year-old who might just be doing a job would end up feeling like, oh, okay, why am I not doing more? So this idea of constantly having to do more than something that feels enough to you is also something that we formed in comparison or as a society. And it keeps growing as the generation changes, right? If I talk about, say, 6 years ago, okay, 6, 7 years ago, um, a person doing one job at, say, 26 would have been enough, right? It would have been enough. But today, if you're only doing one job, again, I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm saying it's a good thing. I believe in doing as much as satisfies me only. But today, if you talk to, a bunch of people and you tell them, you ask them, that a bunch of 26 years old, you're like, okay, what are you doing? They will have two, three things that they're doing at the same time. So how will you ever feel enough if that is your competition? Because we do view it as a competition ultimately. If that is your competition, or those are the people you are in the so-called race with, how will you ever end up feeling enough? बताओ ना, 10 चीजें तो constantly आती रहती है. How to be better? Wake up at 4 a.m., do one job first, then take a break at lunch, and then do the second job that you have. So don't ever stop. Run a marathon also, follow a diet also, get your health together also. Do all these things, because if you don't do it, you're not doing enough. And also, I know I'm extending this topic slightly, but this is one of my favorite topics to talk about, because I was also talking about this recently to a friend. And there's this one reel that I saw on Instagram, right? And it said that the entire idea behind your 20s is so wild, because people keep telling you these different things that you're supposed to do. Like, oh, your 20s are for traveling, but they're also for saving. Your 20s are for starting a life, but they're also for starting a family. Your 20s are to discover yourself, but you're also supposed to discover what your parents want. And your 20s are also supposed to understand the creative side that you have, but you're also supposed to make money. So there's just so many things that you have to constantly do. And this idea is being pushed again and again. It's being reinforced again and again. So I don't understand how somebody would end up feeling enough after all that. So imposter syndrome is on a rise now. Was also I've seen.
It's very valid. I want to, before we talk more about this, I want to backtrack to one thing that you said before this, which was that, for some people, negative, that reinforcement or feedback loop works well, that I'm not enough. And, I'll motivate myself because I'm not enough. So I'll do more. And for some people, it's, I've done enough. So that gives me motivation that I'm capable of doing more. And I don't want to put a gender stereotype to it, but I think there is an inclination for two sides to it. Like males, I think, react to that negative feedback loop more, while women don't. I don't know. I might be completely wrong, but in my experience, I've observed that. Because in my friend circle or the people that I know, I think the way to get a guy out of a bed or out of a slump usually is by watching a David Goggins video and making him run at 4 a.m. I couldn't be true for everyone, but it's true for many. While similarly for a female, it would be entirely different. It would be for her to recognize what she's already done and feel empowered and feel that all is not lost and you've already come this far and it's only the next step. Is there something more to it? Is there depth into this insight, or is it just me observing this?
I think this is not something that is that can always be backed up, because there's always exceptions, right? There's always exceptions to every rule that's there. But at the same time, if what you're saying, if we only look at it through that lens, maybe it's because of the emotional quotient that males and females function on, right? It's different for both of them. It's different to how they react to, how they perceive certain things and how they react to certain circumstances in a very different manner. A female would be maybe, and this is purely because of what you said, okay? This is not something that I think is that has any relevant statistics to it, or at least I don't know of any. But yeah, like I was saying, maybe it's because females would react in a more in a softer way, in a way that's slightly more nurturing and more understanding, while males would be more focused and solution oriented in that department, right? I think I've seen this personally as well, that females are more inclined towards understanding the issue and males are more inclined towards solving the issue. They both end up solving it ultimately. Like, just the approach with which they go to to a certain point is very different. So maybe if that's the thing, and I do agree with you, I just don't think that I have a solid comment to make on it, because again, this is not backed up by anything. This is just a personal perception that comes into play there.
No, but I think, yeah, you're completely correct. If you don't talk statistics, but naturally, if you look at relationship troubles, right, across my experience, I think that's very true what you just said. A guy's first tendency to hear anything, or even my tendency to hear anything, that whenever I hear a problem,
how do I solve? What do you
yeah,
want me to do about this? Right? That's what. अच्छा ठीक है, तुमने problem तो बता दी, अब मैं करूँ क्या? अब तुम्हें चाहिए क्या? This is the usual
yeah,
response that you'll end up hearing. As if you tell your problems to a woman, or you tell, you have some issues with her, she'll be like, okay, yeah, I understand this. Maybe I can do this about it. That would make you feel better. Or like, maybe I can just listen to you more and that would make you feel better. Or you tell me, how do you want to approach this, right? What do you want from me over here? They are more, the empathy is slightly higher on that side. Males are like, okay, now you've told me the problem, but like, now give me a solution for it also. Like, what do you want me to do about this? I can't just be listening to it, right? I have to do something about it. So it's more key, okay, let me solve this, let me build this. This side is, okay, let me understand this, let me try to analyze what comes out of this, let me try to fix it in this way possible. So I think वो फर्क आ ही जाता है, and especially in relationships, yes, that is true. That is 100% true. Of course, there are exceptions to every kind. It's not that men are not understanding at all, or women are not solution oriented at all. It's just that they end up approaching a similar problem in different ways.
do you think that fundamentally there are things that make or break the dynamic between two people in a relationship? Like when it comes to something like this, something so fundamental to how do you approach a problem statement, because life is going to be full of different challenges that you go through. Do you think there is value in aligning in how two people react or respond to a situation if they are in a relationship? Is there a certain successful SOP to follow for people to not have any or have less relationship troubles, from your experience and your insight?
I mean, yes, it you have to factor in how you approach a problem. Basically, how your problem solving skills are, and why that's important. Because, like I said, two people can have very different ways to approach a problem. Some people want a long term solution, and that's how they function. And some people want a short term solution. Like they don't want to approach the problem again and again. Whereas some people function better if they talk about the issue till it's solved. So there does come in a big gap when you two have completely different problem solving approaches or problem solving strategies. However, even though I say that, I still think that that is something that can be changed over time. It can constantly evolve. It can change on the basis of how you are in that relationship. You can have a certain way of looking at a problem, say when you're with your friends, because again, collective thinking, and you can have a different way of approaching the same problem when you're with your partner, because the dynamic over there is different. So, having said all of that, I don't think there is any one way or like a prerequisites that you have to follow to have a successful or a better relationship. I think communication goes a long way, and communication, but also comprehension. This is something my mentor told me once, that you can communicate all you want, but if there's no comprehension, you're talking to a wall. Because it's the same way, you can communicate all you want, but if the other person is not understanding what you're saying, if they're not able to understand what you're saying in the way you want them to understand, then communication is a waste. So communication and comprehension go a long way in any relationship. If you have to make it better, you have to understand what the other person is saying, not just listen. So there's a difference.
This is actually very wise. And I think now, looking back at it, when we say communication is key to solving relationship problem, I think this bit should always be added into that sentence, comprehension, because now that you say it, it makes so much more sense. I've also always assumed that, communication is everything, and we just assume that the other person is comprehending what you're saying. That
Yes.
assumption, but probably in 99% of the cases doesn't work, or 90% of the cases you, then again, you are going into that conversation with the assumption that the other person is as ready to comprehend what you're saying, and they're interpreting it in the same way.
Yeah. But
And
they
if that,
not.
yeah, if that isn't cleared out, then it keeps on building, it keeps on adding up.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, a lot of times, you might have heard from, say, a friend who's telling you about a relationship issue. That, yeah, I told my partner XYZ last week also, but they've still done the same thing this week. Maybe because you did tell them, but they didn't understand what you were saying the way you wanted them to understand. So it'll be a loop. It'll keep getting repeated. जब तक वो एक फाइनल फाइट नहीं हो जाती, सब चिल्ला रहे, फिर सब it's out in the open, right? That's when you start comprehending that, oh, okay, this is what you meant. So if you just focus as much as on the comprehension bit as you do on communication, things might be slightly smoother for you to sail through. Comprehension is very important.
It's very interesting whenever I talk to someone who's from the mental health space, and they have so many useful tools for people to use in their everyday life to solve a lot of common everyday challenges of mental health. But I've realized, or I read this book called 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson, and it talks a lot about how your physical health also is such a crucial element, which we just completely ignore when we talk about mental health.
Yeah.
And we just assume that everyone's physical health is sorted, and we just start at mental health. And Jordan Peterson also speaks about the fact that if you are in a slump, or let's say if you're not in the best phase of your life, and if you're having a low period mentally, emotionally, what time do you go to sleep? What time do you wake up? What do you have for breakfast? Can you answer these three questions, and do they make sense? And why won't you want to start with there? It's an immediate fix, or it's an immediate place to at least recalibrate things. I just think that we assume that everything mentally, like there's another quote that I like, that the problems of mind can't be solved by the mind itself.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
I think you need to take a step back and then realize all of that. And in your experience across your clients, I'm sure you would have come across instances like this, where people making small tweaks in their physical health, or the way they operate, having a massive impact on their mental health. Is that the case?
Yes, physical health will impact your mental health. Because again, how your body needs to feel, mind is also, your brain is also an organ, right? It has to feel, it has to have a certain release of hormones to feel a certain type of way. You will feel, say, okay, if you run a marathon, or if you go for a short run also, forget a marathon, if you go for a short run also, you will end up feeling better. You will always end up feeling better because a certain hormone is released after that run, right? If, say, you're in a situation where you have to act quickly and it's a situation that is stressing you out, you will be better at decision making in that very moment because there are certain hormones that are being released to influence your decision in that department, right? Some people just say that I just had a sudden, burst of clarity and I ended up acting right in that moment, but now that I think about it, I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I ended up, because again, that's you are being, you're being guided to act in a certain manner because of certain hormones that are being released in your body. So coming to physical health, it's very important. Exercise is very important, sleeping on time is very important, getting that hours of sleep that are necessary for your functioning are very important. Now, having said that, only physical health will not improve your mental health. It's a part of it. There are social changes that you'll have to make. There are environmental changes that you'll have to make if necessary, right? But at the same time, it does play a vital role in how you end up behaving or how you end up functioning. If I've not slept well the whole night, right, and I'm already feeling slightly low,
Yeah.
or I've been feeling depressive. It's been 3 months, right? I am not feeling better. My sleep cycle is not good. Also because I'm not able to sleep, but even when I'm able to sleep, I'm doom scrolling. ठीक है, तो उस टाइम पे आप एक चीज को तो पकड़ नहीं पाओगे ना कि सिर्फ डूम स्क्रोलिंग की वजह से तो नहीं हो रहा है, बट इसलिए भी तो हो रहा है क्योंकि तुम सो ही नहीं रहे हो। आप सो पा नहीं रहे हो, दैट्स डिफरेंट, बट आप सो भी नहीं रहे हो, जब आप सोना चाहिए तब भी नहीं सो पा रहे हो। तो कहीं ना कहीं तो उसका पार्ट आएगा ना। व्हेन आई वेक अप द नेक्स्ट डे आई एम फीलिंग लेथार्जिक। Part of it could be that yes, I might be experiencing, symptoms of depression, but part of it could also be that you've not gotten enough rest for your body to function. So how will you
Completely
end
with
up
you.
functioning?
Yeah.
Right? And again, in no way does this imply that it is only one thing that will
Hmm.
play the bigger role. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. So even when you're having, say, an approach, if you have to have a holistic approach to a long-term holistic approach to solve any mental issue that you're dealing with, especially if it's related to your lifestyle, you have to make changes in every department, which includes your physical health, it includes your environmental health, it includes your social life, all of it. It includes your eating habits, sleep cycle, exercise, all of it. You have to balance out all of it for your mental health to work fine.
Hmm. Do you think everyone, as you said in the beginning of this episode, you said that everyone wants or everyone would like to be called intelligent or slightly wiser,
Hmm.
and it's a signal that almost all of us appreciate.
Hmm.
There's also one thing that there's a unsettling desire amongst people to be, which is cool. Everyone wants to be cool, and no one really. I personally don't know what's cool or who you have people in your life that you think are cool, but no one really has the definition of what being cool
I have
is
no
actually.
idea what cool is. I keep getting, so the clients that are slightly younger, uh, 19 to 22 वाला जो एज ब्रैकेट आ जाता है,
Wow,
they have,
I thought I was in that group, and this is the first time in my life I've realized that I
see
am
now
I
you don't
not
feel
in
too
that
good
young
about
group.
that. See, you don't feel too good about that. That's the thing.
You won't let me have that though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you start once, so the other day I had somebody tell me, so now you're in your late 20s, how do you feel about it? I said, oh, I am in my late 20s now. I thought I was in my mid 20s, but apparently not. I am in my late 20s. But okay, coming back to this, I have no idea what cool is. I think the definition of cool keeps changing with generations. Something that was considered cool is now considered cringe. Something that was considered that was popular is now like that's giving me an ache. Don't do it. See, I'm using all these new
That's
terms.
not giving.
Now I know it. I know these new terms. I have a younger brother who keeps me updated with all these new terms. I feel very old when I'm talking about it. But yes, I have no idea what being cool is.
And we all keep, like, people just keep chasing that. I think it's a collective, in my understanding, it's like a collective nod of acknowledgement when you're in a social setting. And it's just you getting some kind of validation of your presence. I think that is what being cool is, because sometimes if a person is just really calm and settled, you feel more calm and settled around them. And this is also another interesting text that I read, was that one of the greatest seducers of all time, and there was some guy from Italy, and I don't know, he was some actor, and it was like, he was not the best good looking, he was not the most good looking man, he was not the most like ripped guy or whatever, the all the physical traits that you would assume for a person to be the most seductive guy ever, he didn't have all of those. But he just, people tell that he had a very calm aura, or he just had a very calm environmental presence around him, that people, whenever they used to come around him, everyone just felt very relaxed, and everyone just felt at ease. And maybe that validation, or that nod of acknowledgement, that you are at peace, you're around in a safe, secure environment, I think that is something that all of us are kind of consciously, unconsciously are crave, or want to be that person, or want to be in that company. In my experience, I think that's something that people like.
I think calmness is also related to being being more reliable, because you're able to think better. You're able to think with a clear mind. So again, certain traits too. Wouldn't you agree that certain traits are also related to, or also associated with being more reliable, like more trustworthy? So if a person is calm, you would be inclined to listen to them, because you know that they're not everywhere in their head. They are very focused. They're very centered. They're grounded. They know what they're talking about, even if they don't know what they're talking about, even if they have no idea what they're talking about. But if you change your tone slightly, if you modulate your voice, right, if you have a different way of articulating your sentences, if you talk in a certain manner, if you appear calm, you will be perceived as somebody who's more reliable, or somebody who can listen to you, or who can understand you better, even if they have no idea what they're doing. So it's the same, but I don't think this is as related to being cool, because when you talk about being cool, or when you talk about that nod of approval, there's so many different clusters now, right? How do you get that nod of approval? You One cluster might approve of you, and the other might not, राइट अभी तो ये एक्सट्रोवर्ट्स एंड इंट्रोवर्ट्स का ही इतना स्ट्रॉन्ग डिमार्केशन हो चुका है कि आई हैव एक्चुअली सीन दिस हैपनिंग इन रियल लाइफ. Earlier, or at least this is what I used to see. Again, I don't know if this is a common phenomena now or not, but earlier I used to see that people were they used to try including introverts if there was a group, right? If they're all, most of them are extroverted people, they would be inclined to talk more, have more things to, chat about, bond over. An introvert might feel slightly out of place in that circle. So they used to try including that introvert more. But now I think, or at least this is what I've seen happening, is that inclusion is not as present as it was before. Now it's like you don't know how to talk. पीछे हो गए बैठो भाई, हमारी कॉन्वर्सेशन इंटरप्ट मत करो. तो हाउ डू यू गेट दैट नॉट ऑफ अप्रूवल? देयर सो मेनी डिफरेंट क्लस्टर्स. आई वाज one of my brother's friends said something about losing aura points.
Oh my god, yeah.
That was the most bizarre thing that I heard that day. But once I started understanding the concept behind it, it was mainly just कि ego lose हो जाती है. Because losing aura points is like you're losing. Like now you've lost the argument, or now you're appearing to be smaller. Your ego is hurt. Your ego is getting smaller. So अब एक कुछ लोग हैं जो ये ऐसे, this is how they're perceiving things, like, oh, you're losing aura points. And then there's other people who are just like going towards slow living, right? Or a calm, peaceful life where they're content with what they have. How do you get your nod of approval from these two clusters that are completely different? I think you have to find what cluster you want to be associated with. Or actually, even better, just embrace who you are individually, because you can be both of these people. I have seen you can be both of these people. You can want to be, you can maybe idealize a certain type of life on some days, and on other days you can want to be another person, and that's completely normal. But I think that is where the problem is coming now. People who want to be uh, associated with a certain type of concept, but they're not feeling fully aligned with it. A part of it is there, a part of them is there in that cluster, but a part of them also belongs somewhere else. So in that conflict, they're not able to understand who they are. So just embrace who you truly are. You can be both of those things, right?
It's
You can meditate and you can party in the same day. There's not a problem with that.
Oh, I completely agree. And I think, this also reminds me of a quote that I read. Probably it was Mark Twain. And he says that if you know what you want to be in life, you'll become that. And that's your punishment because you'll only be that.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true for a human experience. Like, there's value in a discipline. There's value in choosing something to do to, optimize for your sustenance, to optimize for your duties and the responsibilities that you have in life. But I think there should always be that filter in a person's life of making sure that you just don't end up experiencing this for someone else. Like
Hmm.
Shivangi got here to experience Shivangi's version of whatever this is.
Hmm.
And honestly, in all of this noise, and for this also ties back to what you were saying previously. I think social media has played both kind of a diabolical game in this, that you've
Yes.
got to know so many archetypes in life exist. I've got to know that so many different ways of life exist. But then that also tells me that, okay, I can't be all of them also. Now I feel that, how do I choose?
No, no, no. Social media, again, I have loud opinions on social media. I've heard people have really loud opinions on social media, also because of the way it's impacted all of us, right? Even though it has a different impact for all of us, there is also a collective impact that goes on.
Yeah.
Now, even the basis, okay, we were talking about comparison before this, right? Don't you think that social media has played a big role in how we see ourselves purely from the point of view of comparison? That now, earlier, okay, say during our parents era, right,
Yeah.
us time pe the maximum comparison or social comparison or academic comparison, any comparison, the maximum access to comparison that you had was your neighbor, your
Relative or neighbor. Yeah.
or your like close friends,
Yeah.
right? उसके अलावा मुझे पता ही नहीं है कोई क्या कर रहा है,
Exactly.
कोई आइडिया ही नहीं है, तो मैं बुरा कैसे फील करूंगी? But now, if I know that I am doing one job, but Ripu in Bangalore is doing two, I will feel bad, right? Because now I have access to that. No, but on a more serious note, it's you're
On the
right.
most serious note, yeah, just
On
like,
a
yeah.
no, no. But yes, on the most serious note, there is a large role that it has played in shaping our perceptions about ourselves, also about our reality, about what we feel is good or not. Another part of social media that I think is that there's so much information. There is so much. पहले तो बिल्कुल भी नहीं थी. So we've just gone into an extreme now. पहले बिल्कुल भी information नहीं थी, तो सब लोग बहुत ही लिमिटेड information पे function करते थे. उसकी वजह से भी problem होती थी, because you only know this much, so you're forming everything you know based on this much knowledge. अब क्या हो गया, अब इतना सारा है, तो अब इतनी सारी नॉलेज को आप फनल डाउन करके इतने से परसेप्शन कैसे बनाओगे? How do you have a viewpoint when there are 10,000 viewpoints available around you and all of them look appealing? इतनी सारी information के साथ, how do you form see, despite having so much information, we cannot have an informed opinion, because you can never know enough, because now there's so much information. Now there's way more than what is needed. 10 तरीके के perceptions हमेशा ज़रूरी नहीं होते. You can learn to trust your instinct and your perception of certain things and live more peacefully with that, I feel, than to rely on all these available perceptions that you have just because you have access to them.
I think the biggest takeaway, as you were speaking this also, I've realized that once you said that comprehension bit, no, I think it ties to so many of these things. I think we have a lot of communication now, but
Yeah.
there's like comprehension has gone down significantly, like a negative hockey curve. Like we don't comprehend. Do you think when you watch a reel for 3 seconds, 5 seconds, how much can you comprehend in that? 15 seconds, what do you
Attention
do?
span is so less.
Yeah.
Attention span is so less. How will you comprehend something in like, but also matlab, how will you comprehend something in 3 seconds? Yes, but I think also because attention span itna kam ho gaya hai, our grasping power has increased because we know that something might be available and viewed to us for a shorter period of time, so then we perceive slightly more quickly. I feel so. But yes, comprehend kam hi karte hai. Now everyone's just saying things because they know things. But if you go slightly deeper, do they apply those things in their own life? Maybe not. Do they actually believe the things that they are saying? Maybe not. So, like, how do you comprehend such information when there is no reliability or validity behind that information?
Yeah, I think that's very true. Do you get annoyed, or what's your take on when people use psychological terms? Let's say something like anxiety. I don't know if it's just a psychological term or it's a cultural term.
See, that's the
And
problem. Right there.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
the problem.
yeah,
That's the problem. It's not supposed to be a cultural term. It's not supposed to be this. It's not supposed to be something that's used as a trend, for the lack of
yeah,
a better word. It's not a label that is fancy and that has to be attached to you. But I do see people using it very loosely now. Uh, I think there was a study conducted somewhere. Okay, let me not get into that. That's too technical. I'll stick to what I have to say right now. And that is that people, especially people who are inclined to have labels attached to them slightly more than other people, they will be more inclined to have a certain description of what they constantly feel that might not be important, right? You can feel anxious because anxiety is a very normal. It used to exist before as well. पहले उसको घबराहट हो रही है, डर लग रहा है, दिल बैठ रहा है, ये सब बोला जाता था. अब उसका एक टर्म आ गया है जो है एंग्जाइटी. एंग्जाइटी ऑलवेज यूज्ड टू एग्जिस्ट. इट्स व्हेन यू स्टार्ट सेइंग दैट ओ आई एम एन एंग्शियस पर्सन. Just because you feel anxious time to time does not make you an anxious person. Just because you end up feeling slightly hesitant when you are in a social, say, in a social gathering, or you feel slightly overwhelmed in crowded places, does not mean that you always have social anxiety. But to label it like that oh, okay, I feel slightly uncomfortable when I'm in a crowded place, so I have social anxiety. How are you diagnosing that? I like things. This is the most common one, right? I like things that are organized. I like cleanliness. I have OCD. You have
oh
no
my
idea how
god,
OCD functions. You have no idea how difficult it is to manage it. Because it's not just about cleanliness and it's not just about organization. It functions on a deeper level. सो आजकल तो लेबल्स ऐसे यूज हो रहे हैं, वो एक ट्रेंड की तरह यूज हो रहे हैं. इतने ज्यादा यूज हो रहे हैं वो भी. एंड ऑल्सो लाइक आई सेड, टू मच इन्फॉर्मेशन. Everybody is self diagnosing. If you have a shorter attention span, right, or if you're slightly hyperactive, oh, you have ADHD. Arey, but how? Matlab, how? How is that the same thing? Attention span to short hoga hi na hamara. We are glued to our phones all the time. And we function on वो Instagram पे reels कितने टाइम की होती है, तो ड्यूरेशन अटेंशन स्पैन तो कम होगा ही ना हमारा, वो तो नेचुरली कम होगा. तो उसको आप एडीएचडी से कैसे इक्वेट कर सकते हो? इट डजंट मेक सेंस, बट पीपल आर यूजिंग इट, दे यूज इट वेरी लूजली. ओसीडी तो मैंने सबसे ज्यादा सुना है, ओसीडी एंड सोशल एंजाइटी.
and
मतलब
add one more ADHD. Yeah,
ये
OCD, social anxiety, and ADHD.
एवरी अदर पर्सन कीप्स कमिंग नाउ एज मुझे तो एडीएचडी. अरे कैसे है? तुम्हें किसी ने डायग्नोस करा तुम्हारे लिए? तुम्हें कैसे पता तुम्हें एडीएचडी है? देखो, हो भी सकता है, मैं नहीं कह रही नहीं हो सकता, हो सकता है. लेकिन आप एक रील देख के नहीं बोल सकते ना आपको एडीएचडी है. बट ये हो रहा है. पीपल आर
Yeah.
वॉचिंग लाइक 5 इंफॉर्मेशनल रील्स. आई थिंक लाइक नहीं, मेरे को एडीएचडी है बिकॉज जो इसने 20 चीजें बोली है उसमें से 5 मेरे पे लागू कर रही है. अरे वो नॉर्मली भी हो सकती है लागू आपके ऊपर. जरूरी नहीं है आपको एडीएचडी हो उसके चक्कर में, राइट? एग्जीक्यूटिव डिसफंक्शन. सो एडीएचडी के कुछ मार्कर्स आ जाते हैं कि there's naturally attention span is lesser. You have slightly more clouded thoughts. Your mind is trying to, it's like, it's trying to function on different open windows at all points of time, or at most points of time. There's executive dysfunction. You're not always able to complete tasks even if you start them. You function on a reward principle a lot. तो कुछ markers रहते हैं, लेकिन what we don't understand is, and this is purely because of there's too much information, what we don't understand is despite these markers being present, these are not the only markers that are present. These markers can exist independently in everybody at some level, but it still would not quantify to ADHD all the time, right? It's more than that. It's deeper than that, and it has to cause you significant dysfunction in some way. I'm not saying you'll not be functional at all, but it has to cause you dysfunction in your daily life for a prolonged period of time for it to quantify as ADHD. And of course, there are measures that you can use to, there's self-report measures also, but there's also tests that you can do to, and with a qualified professional who knows how to identify these markers. तो जस्ट बिकॉज मुझे लाइक आई एम सेइंग जस्ट बिकॉज मैं तेज तेज बोलती हूँ या मैं 10 चीजें एक साथ बोलती हूँ या मेरा कांस्टेंट थॉट जंपिंग होती रहती है डज नॉट मीन आई हैव एडीएचडी. इट्स मोर देन दैट. तो ये बहुत लूजली करे जाते हैं टर्म्स. पहले आई यूज्ड टू फील दैट इट्स ओके बिकॉज इट्स जस्ट स्प्रेडिंग मोर इन्फॉर्मेशन, बट इट्स स्प्रेडिंग मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन नाउ, and is being used as a fancy label that you have, and that's not fun.
I think and please correct me if I'm wrong, and I would love to know your POV on this, that whenever someone uses a label too quickly or without understanding it very deeply, in some form or shape, it could be some unconscious signaling that they want to do to society, but I think it's also a quick escape from your current reality, and you can just associate yourself ki main to aisa hi hu, so this is how I'll be, and I won't ever try and fix or ever try and sit with it, but I'll just assume that okay, I am hands up, given there's nothing that can be done in my control about it. And when I think that's a very tricky slope to walk in, because once you let that power go of however much control I have on my own life, then you allow anyone and everyone to walk in with dirty feet, dirty shoes, whatever. And I think that's very important. Like, you do have to realize that you are the core person of this whole experience, and once you let go of that whole assumption that you actually are holding the steering wheel, then it's all haywire, then it's all chance, I think. And sometimes we take that such a big decision and we just leave it up to chance, that okay, I'll just take the easiest, what excuse can I pick, this one looks thoda similar to me, I'll pick that and I'll just stick with it. In my experience, I think that's what happens. I don't know why, but there's a lack of not, assuring yourself that, this is me. I mean, I have felt better before. I could do something about it still. Why wouldn't I want to do something about it? Why don't people why is that internal intrinsic motivation to improve my own self
because it's easy to remove accountability. It's easy to remove accountability from your actions. It's easy to avoid accountability because, again, once you avoid, okay, if let's talk about ADHD only because we're already talking about it, right? If you have ADHD and you face executive dysfunction, which is a big part of it, how much are you willing to work on that would be directly proportionate to how much accountability are you willing to take, that this is something that will cause issues to me, but I want to improve on this, right? I don't want to be a defining factor in my life. I could go two ways about, like, say, if I have to complete a task, right? I have ADHD, I have to complete a task. I know I have to complete this task. I could go two ways about it. Either I could know that, yes, I have issues in completing this task, so let me try breaking it down to smaller tasks so that I can complete it. I don't want it to be a barrier to my functioning, right? That's one way I could go about it. The other way is, I have ADHD, so I cannot complete this task. This is the easier one. It's the easiest one. अब मैंने सारी अकाउंटेबिलिटी हटा दी है कि मैं ही मुझे है, बट मैं ही हूँ ADHD. मुझे करना ही नहीं है बिकॉज मुझे पता है ये चीज मुझे है, तो मैं ट्राई क्यों करूँ?
Hmm.
So you remove all accountability from that. It's not that, and I genuinely, I think, I think most of us want to believe that people are intrinsically willing to better themselves, but I don't think a lot of people are. I think once you get very comfortable in an uncomfortable zone, it's very tough to come out from it. You know you're uncomfortable, but you've gotten so used to that. You've gotten so used to being uncomfortable that now that's comfort for you. So now you don't want to get out, because getting out of an uncomfortable zone also um would be difficult if you are fully okay with the circumstances or the conditions that you have. वो भी uncomfortable हो जाएगा. Getting out of that uncomfortable zone would be uncomfortable. I don't know if that makes sense or if you're able to like understand what I'm saying, but
No,
yeah.
I follow you completely. I think, and it happens also. I've seen this happen, like in my experience, across people I've talked to, that a person's, I think human beings are, I don't know if we are programmed that way, but we
Hmm.
see comfort over a lot of things. And, it's just that feeling of, warm, secure feeling of not just being in that environment that you're just very used to that. And
Yeah.
there might be something like extremely good on just the next step, but you would never want to explore it, because then there's a risk of losing what you just have, and which might be terrible.
If see, okay, you talked about the waking up early part, right? Pehle. So if you always woken up at 10 a.m. and you don't see a problem with that, you will never know how you feel when you wake up at 6 a.m. Even if it's
Exactly.
amazing. You'll never know because you're so comfort. Even though you know that that's affecting you negatively, it's making you lethargic. But if you're used to sleeping at 4 a.m., तुम 3-4 बजे तक सो ही नहीं रहे हो, बट तुम्हें मजा भी आ रहा है उसमें, तुम्हें पता है तुम्हारे लिए अच्छा नहीं है, पर तुम्हें मजा बहुत आ रहा है, तुम जग रहे हो 3-4 बजे तक, ठीक है. You will not know how it feels to sleep at 10 p.m. because you'll never try it, because you're very comfortable in sleeping at 4 a.m. because it's working for you. It also gets me back to my point. If it's working for you, you might not want to change it anyway, even if you know that it's not good for you. If it's working for you, 4 बजे सोना अच्छी बात नहीं है ना? मतलब नॉर्मेटिवली अच्छी बात नहीं है. तुम्हें टाइम से सोना चाहिए, टाइम से उठना चाहिए, करेक्ट? ये एक नॉर्म है. लेकिन अगर मुझे कोई डिस्ट्रेस हो ही नहीं रहा है 4 बजे सो के, तो मैं क्यों सोऊंगी टाइम से? वो इंट्रिंसिक मोटिवेशन आना that I want to better my life holistically. I want to be a certain way. I want to be a more disciplined version of myself. I want to be a better version of myself. All that would only come once you give yourself a chance to explore what's on the other side. You try sleeping at 10 p.m. No, you see what happens after that.
Oh yeah, complete. And I also think that people don't respect or care about themselves enough, because for
Uncool.
some reason.
It's uncool, right? It's all, oh, you sleeping so early. Why?
Yeah, why is it
Because
not
I
cool to
need to
take care
sleep.
of my own self?
But
Like,
but it's again, this is also socially very prominent. If somebody says I don't drink in a social
yeah,
gathering, oh, why aren't you drinking? Have one, no, have one drink. I don't. It's not good for you anyway. Why do you want me to drink? No, but have one. But why? Isn't it
so
good
that
that
I feel comfort, I don't feel as bad about my drinking. That's
exactly,
because of that.
exactly. So just have one drink. But why will I have that drink? Even though you know that drinking is not good,
Yeah,
right? You know it's not good. Yet you will ask other people to do it, if and you will not respect the fact that this person is a great person who is not drinking, who is respecting their bodies and not putting, alcohol inside their bodies. मतलब आप फोर्स क्यों करो? आप करो. You are drinking, great, good for you. But like respect the other one who's not. But you now view them as, oh, they're not doing anything, they're not having fun. I mean, maybe their idea of fun is different.
yeah.
So yeah, but I've seen this happen a lot socially.
Can you help me? And I think we've talked about so many things. There's so much value in all of this, but I want to still take out some, actionable things that I can start implementing in my own life. And I'll ask this question to you. I think many people have this and want to ask this to a psychologist, that how do I know if I'm doing it right? Like whatever it is that I'm doing. Is there a are there things that I should look out for, during a process, that tell me that I'm doing something right? Because that unsettlement wali feeling, and no one knows what's to come. But I think, can someone be more at peace with themselves by knowing ki, acha, okay, because an expert, let's say Shivangi, has told me, these are the couple of things that if you feel okay about them, then probably you might not on the wrong track about this thing that you're doing.
Okay, okay. The last part that you said, that just because an expert said it does not make it the way to live. Just because, okay, because listen, while there are certain common things that you can inculcate in your life to have a more fulfilling life, sure, because we have so many individual differences and because we are so unique as people, even though we're similar as a society, but we're so unique as people, there is no one roadmap that you can follow. All of our goals are different. What do you want to achieve? It completely depends on that. If you want to have a lifestyle, say for example, that is peaceful, that is content, that is mindful, that is quiet, you don't want to have a lot of people in your life, you don't want to be too social, you just want to have a very close intimate circle, you lead accordingly, you lead your life accordingly, you'll not place as much importance maybe on, say, networking events, correct? However, if you want to lead a life where you want to, lead it larger than life. Okay, you want your lifestyle has to be larger than life. You want to have a massive social circle, or you want to be, say, popular amongst a lot of people or a lot of circles. You will value, say, for example, networking events more. Correct. So everybody designs their lives according to their end goal. But to have an end goal could be something that is beneficial,
Hmm.
because then you'll formulate the rest of, I don't know who, I don't remember who told me this, that if you want to have a clearer picture in life, start going backwards, don't go forward. Why? Have an end goal and then start building on it, instead of building and then seeing where it goes. Have an end goal and then start building backwards. Now, again, I don't really remember who told me that, but somebody very wise told me that. It's stuck with me since then. That now I have an end goal and I'm building my life accordingly,
Oh
rather
yeah.
than building my life and then having an end goal. I think that helps. Apart from that, just try to embrace the fact that we're individual people. If you fall prey to like a collective thinking and a collective set of people who will approve you and then you'll form your life, it might no, you might not feel content with it ever. How there's only everybody functions on different capacities, right? The safe, even capacity for achievement, or the basis of what you think is achievement, is so different. Something that I view as an achievement could be something that's normal for you. Maybe you don't view it as an achievement, right? It is also based on our experiences. So if you try to follow somebody else's perception of what is good and what is bad, even if it's my perception, then you will not be peaceful in life. You have to embrace your individual identity. Instead of trying to fit into different areas and trying to fit into different shoes, you try to wear your own shoes, just tie the laces properly. That's it.
Wow.
You'll
I
be
think
very.
that should be a title of a book, I think.
That was so good. I'm so happy. I don't know where it came from, but good one.
Yeah. Yeah. That you should probably trademark it right now so that no one steals
I
that
am going
title.
to write it and use it somewhere to look cool in social circles.
Yeah.
I forgot what I said though. No, I remember.
But Shivangi, I think you have a certain way of making these topics sound very uh, like easy to understand for someone like me who doesn't have any background in psychology, or people I'm sure who listen to this. And I'm very grateful that you didn't make it hard for us to follow. It felt like a very friendly conversation still, while understanding many things from an expert or someone who does this professionally angle. Thank you so much for taking this time out on the More Serious podcast. Your answers, still personally for me, I think I've changed one lens for after this episode's recording, which will be that comprehension bit. I'll probably think about how often do I comprehend when people tell me something, and how often do I value that comprehension and don't just assume that the other party got what I meant. So I think there's supreme value in that, and I loved having this conversation with you.
It was great having this conversation. You also know a lot about a lot of things, and that's why it was fun to have a conversation, right? You could also add value to it. So it was a great conversation overall, and I'm glad you could have some takeaways from it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think whenever we have another psychology doubt, when we have got accumulated some of them, we'll call you again and have another chat. But
Done.
great to have you on the podcast.
Lovely to be